What would you say is the most difficult question you've ever faced? And have you ever faced a question that maybe was just so perplexing, it was so difficult that as soon as it rung in your ears, you had like this jaw drop to the floor, maybe like Bugs Bunny. You could almost feel that psychological dread of a cold sweat and maybe just a face of absolute befuddlement come across your face. You ever had to deal with that? I really hope you haven't, because for someone like me who always had the problem with daydreaming since the first moment in kindergarten, I really hope and trust that none of you had to face that. I think really when we're thinking about this passage in Daniel, about the king's question, the king's mystery, I think maybe this clip is going to help us out a little bit. Katie's going to get this up for us, and it might be a little unclear, but just bear with it. And I think it's going to really help us put us in some kind of context of the consequences and the great dread that was going on with Daniel as he was in the situation. What's your name, what is your request, and your favorite color? Only if it was such easy questions for Daniel when he's in front of King Nebuchadnezzar. But really, this is probably the most difficult question in the ancient world, in the ancient history. Who could possibly come up and figure out this answer? You know, think about just the severity of the question. There's no possible way. Even the king's men, look, remember what they're saying about this. It's that, they're trying to weasel their way in. and trying to get some wiggle room with the king. And the king says he's got this very good standard, very clever, or he would know the true meaning of it. But they said to him, the astrologers answered the king, there's not a man on earth who can do this, what the king is asking. It's just too great. It's too mighty. And more than that, there's no one ever in the history of mankind who would even think of asking such a thing of his wise men, of his counsel. And now the problem, the severity of the mystery, of the question just so is not bad enough. Think about the scope. You know, it wasn't Daniel's fault that he got dragged into this. King Nebuchadnezzar, he brings forth his magicians, his wise men, his counselors, his astrologers. And of course they got a raw deal, but because they didn't get any, they couldn't give an answer to King Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel and his fellow Judean captives, they got dragged into it too. I'm sure maybe one or two of you could relate to a problem if you're at work or maybe at school, somebody else got in trouble and you got the rap for it. It wasn't Daniel's fault that they couldn't get it right, but all the wise men were facing this looming peril, this certain doom, because nobody could deal with this problem. No one could deal with the king's question. And on top of that, even more, it's that this death, think about this, that the question in itself is so problematic that if you got it wrong, you lost your life for it. That's the type of question that would certainly put your jaw to the floor, wouldn't it? Now, the prognosis to this is really that there's only one person that could answer this, and it is God himself. And the magicians, even though they may not acknowledge Daniel as God Yahweh, they would still say, there's nobody can do this except the gods in heaven, and we can't get to them because they're not living among us. And so, even when Daniel comes, he gives full credit to God, right? Saying, it wasn't me that could do this. It was only God. It was only his goodness and his blessing that he's going to tell the king what his dream means. But I think even deeper than that, I think as Arioch went to Daniel and told him the sad news that there was death that was coming because no one could help the king in his troublesome dreams, I think for Daniel, this problem was maybe just the icing on the cake, what he's been going through. Do you remember what we were talking about? I think Captain Pamela talked about our first sermon on Daniel. That this issue of the king and his dreams was really just a long line, it's just a sad train of problems that Daniel was already dealing with. Think about it this way, that the 2 years prior to Daniel being in the king's service, he had his own country. He was in the region of Judah. He had his countrymen. He probably had a good family. He was probably a devout, worshiping Jew. And then it seemed like, just out of all of a sudden, God abandoned his people. The Babylonians come up. They just laid waste to the Judean countryside. They completely toppled over the city of Jerusalem. They enslaved Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Remember we talked about them in the fire last week. They carted them off like property to this foreign city in Babylon. And so Daniel's probably thinking, is this just the final straw? He's been good to us these past 2 years. We've been getting through. We've been making it by in Babylon, but this isn't right for God's chosen people. How could God abandon us? And now this just seems like this is it. He's just going to put us out of our misery. The bigger problem, the bigger mystery, is not what just King Nebuchadnezzar was dreaming, what nightmare kept him up that night. The problem Daniel really faced with his community and his friends is, why does God continue to let bad things happen to us? That's the true mystery. That's the question that they're dealing with. And it's the question that's really that we have the great mystery that we're constantly struggling and bailing against even today. Why does God let such disaster happen? Why does 100,000 people have to die in a single incident of earthquake in Haiti? Why does violence continually perpetuate in the world with war after war? With the horrible things that can even just think back to Christmas time, a little before we just getting ready for kettles. And a small child was killed outside of Wellsville Bible Church with a car accident. Say to God, why?
The mystery is just too great for us to understand. The problem